we're not on there, but oh, we were a second ago.
Just says waiting.
You're live. It says we're live. Okay, well, hopefully we are live now. If we're not, then I'm talking to myself. Maybe you've actually been watching me and Kelly for a few seconds, look very confused, because you would think by AMA number 5,320 that we would be able to do this by now, but it seems every single time we're caught out a little bit by something.
It's true.
And this is no
For
different.
a technology company, we're not very good at the live streaming, and we need to. We'll get better, but
Build our own live streaming platform.
Yeah, maybe.
We're good at the building. Okay, well, happy Wednesday. Good afternoon. We're going to do Throwback Thursday on a Wednesday.
Pretty much, yeah. So we're going to be running through all the different iterations of Dubler from where, before it was even Dubler, and when
Before it
George
was Dubler,
first
yeah.
came up with the idea, all the way through to today. So if you're interested in the idea, you know, the different, when it's been hardware and it's been software, we're going to be talking all about it. So feel free to ask any questions, and we'll make sure we get them answered or show you anything that you want to see.
Mm-hmm. Also, just a little bit on the setup today, because we are going through some of the iterations, and actually not all of them because that would take so long, but because we're going through some of the iterations, they are in various stages of temperamentality over the course of the last 3 years. So because of that, the way that we're doing the audio today is everything is being played out of a little boombox here, because it's just way easier than trying to do the setup where we can flick properly between it and stream the audio, because a load of the different parts, we've got a Rasberry Pi here, for example, it's just easier this way. So if the audio starts kind of clipping or overloading or anything like that, that's maybe why. Pop it in the comments and we'll at least adjust it, but just a bit of forewarning.
For sure. Okay, so
It's like X-ray in.
yeah, George.
You know what the first thing I was going to show
first?
was? I'm going to start, it's always best to start with the thing that is going to, I don't know, I don't want to say disappoint people, but I'm going to start on the microphones, because as you've probably seen, some people have been on the Vochlea journey from a while back. We've been through some iterations on the microphone. And so to give a little bit of background about how we even got here, this company started, or the seeds of the idea started as a university project whilst I was studying at the Royal College of Art, and I was previously an engineer, and then I was also like a consultant, and I was very focused on making something that was a product. I was going to become a designer, so I was very focused on some kind of making something quite physical, and I focused that on a microphone. So this was okay. It's been a real long time since I looked at any of these. I wanted it to be as bling as possible, hence why it's as bling as possible. This was
Pretty bling.
This was from one of them's broken actually. You can grab
Have a
that
look.
one. Yeah. Oh, it's disgustingly printed.
Where
as
was
well.
the inspiration from this?
Well, look at that one. See, this was the nice print and it broke. So it's basically all the different instruments. Because the idea being that your voice can be any instrument, I wanted to create something which was representative of that. So it's got an inlay in it, a bit like you would have in kind of
I'm going to bring it up a bit closer.
a guitar or like a violin or something like that. It's got, and I did actually make one with brass, but that broke. It's got a brass kind of cone in the middle, and that's kind of representative, obviously, of brass instruments. And then it's got this faceted design, which is kind of representative of. I'm trying to think back what bullshit I used to say when you're asked about it in a kind of arty way. It's to do with prototyping. Anyway, if we spend too much time on each thing, it's going to take forever.
And you 3D printed this?
That's 3D printed, yeah. We did look into whether or not we could make the microphone like that, and the answer is yes, if you want to buy it for about £3,000 ago. So we unfortunately ditched that idea. We made it even a little bit more straightforward. Ignore how incredibly red this is. But this is a similar design, but it's a little bit easier. It was a little bit easier to make, but still so incredibly difficult to mass manufacture this. This is what they don't teach you at art school, any practicalities. So we quickly ditched that idea when we realised it was going to be way too expensive, which was a shame. But I thought I'd get that off the chest first and then talk more about the software, which is actually where all the real stuff is.
So what was the first software?
The first software was using Pure Data. If anyone knows Pure Data, it's a bit like Max for Live. In fact, it was made by the same people. I think there was some kind of separation of ways at some point. and it's free software for basically hacking together DSP audio apps and stuff like that. And so a lot of it was built in that, and then using some open source plugins for machine learning and stuff like that. And one of those is Wekinator. If you're interested in prototyping things with Wekinator, or prototyping things with machine learning rather, check out Wekinator. It was made by Rebecca Freebrink, who is now a lecturer at Goldsmiths, and so did some other work with Goldsmiths. And actually, in the end, I gave them this prototype, and I'll come on to talk about that. But let's first of all have a quick see. This is what was at my graduation project. Let's just have a quick look. And I could maybe bring around the camera so you can see some of what's going on. I won't show all the patches because, for one, there's like 10 different patches, and for another thing, there's probably like, it's just so much information. So these are the various different patches that I'd created. I'm turning the DSP on now. And let's see if it's actually doing anything. And it's all going into this microphone. Ooh. So that was what I was showing as the like very, these sounds we're getting right now is exactly the experience that people that were exhibiting work next to me had to put up with for like 4 weeks. Down a second. So what you can hear there when I'm going to what you can hear there when I'm going over to the synth sounds, the way we used to do it was quite different. Obviously you can hear there's like way more latency, and all of the accuracy is nothing like as good either. But also there was a very like different way of doing things. So with the synth sounds, it's actually choosing a synth based on the way you're making the sound. So if I go D D D D D. So the idea is you could flick between instruments, and it would be recognizing what instrument you were impersonating, and then create that instrument. At this stage, everything is like inbuilt synthesis. So it's not using MIDI. It's using some physical models, or in the case of the drums, it's just triggering samples. But it's not using anything external. It's all in within pure data. That's that one.
So, how long were you working on this one for? Because this was when you. So now, obviously there's a few of us working on the team. We've got some great tech guys, and I've heard you say before that there's not a single bit of the code that you originally did in there anymore, unfortunately.
No.
But
I think some of the principles from there are still in place, although they've been radically improved, and it's already part of the studio kit is written in C++, so not my forte.
Fair enough. So where did you go from this?
Well, actually, this version right now isn't probably the very best version of this, but it was the one that I could find and easily open up. So I did improve this one a little bit, and I put in some kind of other function. In fact, all the effect stuff, I did put some effect stuff in this as well. But let's move on from that. And the next thing I did was turn up at Goldsmiths and met Cam, who is our senior machine learning engineering guru, DSP audio music person. Who has basically injected an enormous amount of genius into the project. And he was working at Goldsmiths at the time, and I said, still with this vision of being like, we're making a microphone, we need to take this and we need to put it in an embedded piece of hardware, so that you can have this super cool vocal controlling hardware piece. And so that's what we gone and done, or started to do. We made a Raspberry Pi, or say we. Cam and Leon as well at the time started compiling everything to run on Raspberry Pi. And
is this the Raspberry Pi?
That is the Raspberry Pi.
Is it fragile if I touch it? Probably.
Oh, I mean, it's fragile if you look at it.
Well, yeah, I'm going to move the camera down.
The problems that we had with the Raspberry Pi, I'm going to just start closing some things on here before my laptop completely dies. Right, okay, so what you can see is it's actually got, this again, there's lots of iterations of the Raspberry Pi as well, of the version that ran on it. And this one happens to have a shield on top which is capable of doing MIDI. But the demo that I'm going to show now isn't MIDI. If it works at all, let's have a quick look.
We're having some kind of issue with our Instagram feed right now, but I think it'll be available afterwards. So.
Okay, so the idea with doing it on the Raspberry Pi was that it would all run in the device. One of the challenges for that being, of course, that it's a really difficult thing to do. And you can't see anything, you don't have any visual display. So what we've got here is the Pi is actually plugged in by an HDMI cable to a screen here, so that you can see what the hell's going on when you first set it up. But the thought was that we'd be able to overcome that by just putting in a couple of buttons, but we never really got that far because it turned out to be very difficult. So I've plugged in this microphone. Let's just have. Oh, I need to move over the. Move over this. It's all very very technical. Oh, actually, I can do that.
So many wires down here.
So many
right now.
wires.
Oh god.
Ooh, that suggests something's working.
Yeah. Or not.
Change to perform mode. Let's just try this.
Oh god.
Okay.
Jesus.
Well, that's working lovely. Let's just if I turn this back on, am I going to have more noise? Okay. What we can do. Let's just see what this does. Okay. I'm going to create a new profile. So this was the first time when we had some way of teaching your voice to the system. It's still kind of a bit inspired by the old Pure Data version, but you could actually create a new profile, which is what I'm going to try and do now if I can see what's going on. Okay, so I'm on drums mode and I'm going to teach it some examples of my voice. In theory, I'm not plugged in, that's why.
That's why.
That's why it's not doing anything. So many wires. Right, where's this going? Oh yeah, no, that's right. That was right. Okay, right. Let me just clear those. Oh shit. Okay. Okay, we're cooking. Right. So some examples for drums. That's it giving a little prompt, because that's what you had to do when you didn't have a screen.
What's it gonna... So what's happening on the screen right now? So this is the...
Hang on. So I'm not entirely sure because I'm trying to remember. This on screen is the little interface that we had to create so that you could... oh, it's just not done it, has it? Because I haven't taught everything. Oh my god. So this is really illustrating some of the challenges that we would have. Okay, I'm going to have to do that again really quickly. You do leave it, right? It's worth it. It's worth it. Well, I seem to be having no luck here, which is a real shame, because we had it working earlier. Well, the Raspberry Pi version was much faster, although quite temperamental, as you can see, because I seem to be unable to do anything with it, which is a real shame. So we're going to have to skip that one, because otherwise I'll spend a while.
But just know that it exists.
It exists. The thing that would have been worth showing about it is that the latency is much better than on that PD1. It's still got the idea of classifying between different instruments. I'm really sorry, Cam, if you're watching, because I was talking to Cam earlier saying that I've got it running. And we'll have to do a demo in the office sometime. And if we do it, we'll do a little recording of it and we'll upload it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of cool, but it was very temperamental, and there's lots of little challenges for the Raspberry Pi as well. One of the things is we're using a USB keyboard, and for a really long time we were getting all of these audio breakdown problems, and we had no idea why, and it was to do with USB 2.0 causing an issue, so you have to buy a specialist keyboard for it, blah, blah, blah. Things like this meant that we thought this is a complete nightmare. And then when it came to saying, okay, can we make this into something like commercial, the price to develop the hardware is just astronomical.
Yeah,
so,
that was crazy.
So that didn't happen. What a shame. Okay, the Raspberry Pi one that's over. On to the next one.
But yeah, we'll get it working. We'll definitely make a little video with it because I think it's...
I was really pleased with it earlier.
Yeah, it
one of the
worked
cool
really
things...
well. It's just typical. This is what we say about it's really hard when we do anything live that it always goes a little bit wrong, and like 20 minutes before it works perfectly every single time.
Exactly. Well, the other thing about it is that because when you're not using it with MIDI, it's really annoying disadvantages to that. One being that obviously, so many of the instruments and the samples and all the effects and stuff like that we use are in MIDI. But one of the advantages to it is that you have much more control over the instrument. So with all the pitch tracking stuff, you can really, start to have a lot more control and influence over it. And so that's actually one of the little plus sides to it, of which there are a load of plus sides to some of the versions that came afterwards, which quickly usurped it. So I'm going to see if I can open another version. So by this stage, how far on are we? This is well, the Raspberry Pi one was 2 years ago. Yes, I want to quit. And then.
So is this the version that I probably saw first?
We're about to see the version that you saw first.
For me. I'll come round.
Plug in a different microphone. Let me plug in this microphone. Plug in this microphone. So for the first time, we've got a MIDI output. So probably this one. Not entirely sure. No, not that one. Maybe this one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you can see. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, as you can see, the design is really different from where we are now.
This, to be absolutely fair to where we were at this stage, this was never intended to be a final visual design. And as you can see with all of this stuff on the right-hand side, this was very much for like debugging and testing. And the tech has actually come on a really long way since this. So probably a load of that's not even particularly relevant anymore. But still, we've got this situation here where you actually can change instrument by the way that you make a sound, rather than do all of the effects and controls that we do now. There's lots of good reasons why that's the case. I've actually already created a profile here. I think I don't know what it'd be like, but for the sake of it, let's add one more. I'll just go into Ableton and put this in. Look, I even made a profile earlier and called it Old Bluey, which sounds like a bad film. Okay, so I'm going to quickly let's delete this one. And what sound's this? D D D D D D D D D D D D. Oh no, what's coming out of my? Don't want that. It's coming out of the laptop. Oh, it's such a mess of wires here. This video is going to require a wee bit of editing. Right. So if you're sitting here watching this and it's not live and you're wondering why are their videos so long and rambly and ill-prepared, it was because it was live originally. We get that a bit sometimes. Yeah. D D D D D D D. Oh, come on. D D D D D D D. Okay, let's just see what happens if I do this. Is there something else open which is causing it issues? Now actually this one does work quite well. But I think it might be a bit temperamental because I've had so many things open on my computer, which it's starting to complain about now. We've moved it back now. But what we've got is the ability to teach you different drums. It can do the drum stuff pretty well, probably as well as just checking it's all on the right thing. But you can also classify instruments by kind of making different sounds. So the way I make a sound changes the instrument. I could turn it off straight away. Actually, in fairness, that one should be working a wee bit better as well, but there's such a mess of wires and plugins and streaming and stuff like that. It's probably just got a little bit too much going on my laptop.
There's a lot going on this table.
There's a lot going on this table. But the big change between this one and the next, fast forward probably another, say, 6 months, is we removed the idea of trying to identify which instrument you were doing. So before, like I say, you'd go D, 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 and you get a guitar, or you go and you get some brass, which when it came to doing kind of demos, when it came to going to events, and when you were just kind of giving someone a quick view of what you're up to, was quite like impressive and made people go, ooh, that's good. But then as soon as you actually sit down to use it, you're like, yeah, but is that a useful thing? Are you playing around like making a little bit of piano sound and then you go, ooh, let's have some guitar, dee 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 dee. You know, it wasn't actually very useful.
It's really opened it up now.
So we switched that out, and we also changed it so that you didn't have to make such a hard sound at the beginning to identify what kind of instrument you were making. So instead you could just have a kind of slow, increased melodic sound. It will recognize all of that, and then you can affect the sound by changing the kind of the style of your voice, I suppose, which was turned out to be much more useful. And all of this has been kind of user driven, testing with people. It took us one of the reasons it took such a long time to actually change from selecting between instruments versus using the same instrument and changing the effects on it was actually because only when you really test it with someone for quite a while did they raise, maybe this isn't as useful as we thought it was. Because loads of people that we would show it to would be like, oh, that's amazing. And then it's only if they actually sit down to use it you think, yeah, but let's say what?
For sure. And we're really excited about getting these kits out to you as well, because we really want to, we cannot wait to see what you guys get up to with them, what you use it for, what we can learn about your music making and how we can help support that and make it even better. So, right now, we've only we've had our beta testers, we've done absolutely loads and loads of testing. But yeah, the next stage is to figure out how we can continue to improve it and make it the best tool for music making.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
So we should answer some questions.
Did we get any questions?
We've had a few questions. So
in that absolute car crash, there was time for some questions to come in.
No. Well, first things first, we were meant to be streaming on Instagram Live, but for some reason it's not working right now.
Add it to the list of issues.
I know, it's just classic. But so what we're going to do is download it and we'll upload it to Instagram TV. So maybe you'll be watching it on Instagram TV and you'll be wondering why I'm coming up to the screen a lot. But whatever, these things happen. Okay, so first question from Sue Robinson is, I want to use Dubler for recording with GarageBand for iOS. Is this possible yet?
Well, Sue, I'm not entirely sure what the question is here, because when we say GarageBand for iOS, are we saying GarageBand for... Is iOS mobile specific?
Yeah, OS is.
OS is.
Yeah.
Okay, right, well, there you go. So unfortunately, the answer to that at the moment is no, because Dubler is a desktop software. So it can only run as a software on Mac and Windows computers. But it does work with GarageBand, but it has to be GarageBand on Mac, not GarageBand on mobile, on iPad or mobile at the moment.
Sorry, Sue.
Sorry.
Okay, question from Herbert. And this is actually a question on payments, so I'll take this one. So When will there be an option for paying with PayPal since the credit card payment isn't working for me? So we've had a few questions on this. We're currently taking pre-orders on Indiegogo, where they take all major credit and debit cards. They actually used to take PayPal as a payment, but no longer. As soon as we're up and running with our own order system from our site, it's definitely something we're going to look into and figure out how we can have lots of different types of payment methods for people, because we realise that is the easiest way for lots of people to pay across the world. So unfortunately right now it's just major credit and debit, but hopefully from October onwards we'll be able to look at some different types of payment. So hopefully then is the answer. Okay, another question from Instagram earlier, which is the Kickstarter date still due in October? Yes, we are on track for that. Touch wood, everything is going to plan so far.
It's going to be end of October.
Yeah, so towards the end of October. But essentially, yeah, I mean, you know, things could change depending on where you are in the world. They're going to be sent out from the UK, so if you're in the UK, chances are you're going to get it sooner than if you're in Australia. So,
and they have to arrive in the UK first, which at the moment is all completely on track, but that's another thing that's, I suppose, slightly out of our hands with what is happening in the current political situation.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, Brexit could affect these things, but for now, we can say with confidence that we are on track with everything.
We were really really caveating a load of stuff there. We're on track.
We're on track. We're completely on track. Everything's fine. So, yeah, we will let you know if anything changes. We'll be, you know, we're very open with everything we're doing. So, yeah. Just assume October unless you hear any differently. Okay, so an interesting question, and one that we don't really truly have an answer to is, we'll check that out. But maybe this is a good time to say, like, which artists and would we really like to see using it?
Oh, I like the idea of celebrities.
Oh.
And I guess maybe some like D-list celebrities.
What you?
Which celebrities would? I mean, you could get some of them. Bill Oddie would do it. He'll do anything.
Will he?
Yeah, come on. This was his chance to relaunch his career.
Bill, get in touch.
No, okay, sorry, I'm being stupid. I don't know.
Well, I just saw a tweet the other day where Madlib said he just made all of his beats for his new album on his iPad. So I'm kind of like, okay, so you've made them on your iPad. Maybe cool. Maybe the next stage is make all your beats on Dubler.
People tag Timbaland a lot as well.
People tag Timbaland all the time. You know, he's got real history of making beats with his voice. Like, that's his go-to method before he works on, you know, any hardware, any DAW, anything, you know, it's his thing. So yeah, Timbaland would be great. There's so many amazing artists.
Who else would be like really up there? Because there's people that would be up there to use it from a personal, like, oh, that's because really we appreciate the artist and it'd be great just for the idea for them to be using it. And then there's also people where you think, well, that would be you'd do such a good job of it, that'd be such a good use case. So there's two slightly different things. I tell you what, the closest that we had, I didn't actually have the guts to ask him to do it, but I reckon he might have done. Now I look back on it and think, I did a demo for Prince Philip.
Oh my god.
Come on, if we had a video of Prince Philip beatboxing into one of the early prototypes, how good would that be?
I suppose it would.
He's not an artist, but he's a celeb-ish.
I suppose he's a sort of celebrity, yeah.
He was quite impressed.
Yeah, well, maybe we can get back in there with Prince
Get back
Philip.
in touch, yeah.
Maybe we can get that royal crest. But yeah, I mean, we have a big long list of people that we would love to see Dubler being used by, honestly. And
I'm going to post that photo of me beatboxing to Prince Philip in our Facebook group.
Okay.
Just to prove it happened. All right, sorry. We got any other questions? Now I'm rambling.
Have we got any questions from YouTube? We've got Liam over here who's assisting on the stream. You may have seen him a little bit as I've been moving the camera around.
And you can probably hear this like hum going on through the whole of this video, because that's just my laptop still complaining about trying to have done all of the things that we asked it and it failed to do.
No, unfortunately.
No? Okay.
Martin Kaiser says hello, so.
Hi.
Cool. Hi. I mean, we've got some ideas for future AMAs. We want to do one with lots of loud music in the background so that we can test that, probably down at the Rattle. We got a load of other ideas of some collaboration stuff. But if you've got any ideas of things that you would like to see, yeah, just drop it in the comments and we will put it on the long list. We have had some suggestions. I can't remember what they're off the top of my head, but those suggestions, we have not forgotten about them. We maintain a list.
We do. So yeah, that's it from us, and I guess we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Oh, before we go, we have to mention we're going to be at Sonar this month now. I believe it's the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th and 20th of July. So if you happen to be going to Sonar, you have tickets, please swing by and have a demo, because we'll be there at the Sonar Plus D at the Sonar by Day area. So come and meet us if you're around. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, and I'll be at Les Ardents tomorrow, which is in Liège in Belgium, at the music tech part of it, Wallafogna.
Perfect. Okay,
Cool.
thanks.
All right, have a
Bye.
nice day. Bye.